good afternoon, and welcome to this week's live chat. We're on a different platform this week. We are on Crowdcast, and we are joined by my co-host, Stephen O'Donnell.
Hiya.
You wave, and our guest, Darren Wymil.
Hi, Darren.
Hello, everybody.
Right, now because we're on a new channel, I'm going to try and do the tech, which is hilarious, and Stephen is going to do the questions. We are talking about speccing out candidates, marketing candidates, that topic, and whether recruiters should be doing it and how they should be doing it. Our chat will probably be about 30 minutes long. Any guests who want to get involved, there's a question panel down the side if you're watching us live. If this is a recorded version, you won't have that. So, Stephen, if you want to kick off with your questions and let Darren introduce himself.
Darren, if you want to crack on, first of all, let us know a bit more about yourself. You're considerably younger than me and considerably more successful in recruitment, but a lot of people out there won't know the backstory.
Well, that's very, very kind of you to say. Thank you, but I don't necessarily agree with that. But so my name's Darren Wymil. I'm the CEO of the Opus Professional Services Group. We are a group of recruitment businesses set up in 2008, which now have 10 different brands, offices in California, New York, Bristol, which is our head office, London, Amsterdam, and Sydney. We started off as an IT recruiter, and we've expanded and diversified into another number of other areas, including energy, public sector, architecture, and a number of different fields as well. Fantastic.
So, Darren, the topic today, and we found it really important to bring on someone who was at the coalface, who knows what's going on. I'm an old school recruiter, but haven't recruited hands-on for some time now. So what we're looking for is someone who knows the methods that are working for recruiters, the methods that, frankly, you should steer well clear of. And the topic's obviously on specking out candidate, canvassing out candidates, having a great candidate in your hands that you're trying to bring to the attention of employers. So in terms of your overview of the practice, it's an area where lots of the poor reputation of some recruitment consultants can come up because of the methods that are used. What's the feeling amongst your organisation for that type of promoting of candidates to either existing clients or brand new clients?
Yeah, and I mean, it is such a divisive area, isn't it? I mean, it's probably one of the single biggest things, alongside how much money recruiters make as a margin on contractors. It's probably the most emotive subject. And it really does split opinion. I think, let's just jump straight to the chase. Where do I stand on it? I think it's a really positive thing if done the right way. I think it's something that, we do here at Opus, and it's something that we encourage. But it's so important that you get the parameters of what is the right way defined, and making sure that you're actually working for the benefit of everybody involved. I think where people get it wrong is that they work for a short-term benefit, usually with the recruiter's own self-interest as the primary driver for doing something. So I think there's a time and a place for it. I think if it's done the right way, it's a good thing. But absolutely, I can see why when done the wrong way and in a certain capacity, it just really, really annoys everybody and gives recruiters a bad name and makes everyone hate us, which is not good.
You were talking about the bigger picture there as opposed to the short-term benefits of doing so. The short-term benefits of doing so, obviously, when you promote a candidate to a client, the hope or the dream is that they'll be starstruck by this candidate, ask them along for an interview and a fee results. But the bigger picture, what do you mean by the bigger picture? Is it the case that this candidate, putting forward a candidate to a client that you've perhaps never dealt with before, is a bit of a Trojan horse? It demonstrates your expertise and ability to find star candidates like this. And if only they dealt with you on a regular basis, then this caliber of candidates would be available to them on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yes, to a point. I think to describe as a Trojan horse is a really interesting way of describing it. I mean, firstly, I think it needs to be a real candidate who's really actively interested in working for that client. I think there's no point in sending out some wonder candidate that doesn't exist, and that actually happens a lot. I mean, we hear this a lot from our clients as their anecdotal experiences of working with recruitment companies. You know, oh, we got sent somebody who was better than Jesus and it was amazing. And guess what? They didn't exist, or they didn't turn up to the interview. And that's so bad. I mean, that is as bad as you can really get in recruitment. You know, that is what, you know, to sort of like, I guess, would be a true reflection of a Trojan horse kind of offering. But I think that there's a time and a place whereby really good, look, I think the wonder solution that everybody kind of justifies it with is, well, I've got this wonderful, supersonic, amazing CV that no business on this planet could ever live without seeing. So I'm going to send them out. And then everyone's going to email me back saying that I'm the greatest human being ever, not just the greatest recruiter. And as a result, you know, thank you, Darren, you've made life worth living again. And that is very seldom the situation. And I don't think every CV that's being sent out by the industry or even by Opus, you know, despite the fact that, you know, I think we're trying to do it in the right way, falls into that category. But what I think it's about is sending relevant candidates who are active in the marketplace to relevant companies who may be interested in seeing their CV. And that's as good as you can get. Is everybody always going to be receptive? Well, no, you know, probably not. But by using your recruiters and by using your recruitment skills, as a recruiter and your experience, you can make an educated guess over why somebody may or may not be interested. You know, so for example, they've recruited people from that background before, whether it be from that company before or with that skill set before, or you understand from a very good source that they're actively looking for somebody, and you know you're trying to reach out and positively engage with them, and you think, you need to engage with them in that way. So I think you need to know your audience. I think you know, there's absolutely a case of knowing your candidate, what they want to do, what is a relevant company to send them to, so that it's only relevant potential companies, but also knowing the audience is going to be receiving the candidate, the clients, or the businesses, I should say, on the clients, the businesses, and you know, knowing what they want, what their historical buying patterns have been. So it's about if you're a genuine market expert in your market, you know what's going on, then you should be able to.
So if you're using a great candidate to open the door to a new client, you would have a checklist in which case of the candidate has been spoken with about this company, this prospective employer. They've agreed that you can submit them with their behalf to that employer, and you can try and attract the attention of them. I suppose you would have to say to the candidate, look, we're not formally working with this employer at the minute, but I would like to market you to this employer. Would you as honest and open with the candidate in that circumstance?
Yeah, I think you've got to be. I mean, no candidate thinks you're working with every client on the planet. I mean, you know, I'd be a lot more better off than I am now, and I probably wouldn't be on this phone call to you. I'd be on a yacht somewhere and doing something far more fun. Not that this is not fun. I love this more than being on my yacht. But you know, I think the key thing is that the candidate needs to be educated about what you're going to do. You know, you need to explain to him that, you know, that you believe that they're a great candidate. You don't offer this level of service for every candidate. You know, we get literally hundreds, thousands of candidates come through a week, you know, a month, whatever the period of time is. We don't offer this candidate. We can't be, you know, to use a word that may be associated with this, spamming CVs here, there, and everywhere. Yes. You know, it has to be a tailored kind of rifle shot, you know, rather than having a sawn off shotgun approach and just go like that, you know, have all of these CVs and send these CVs to everyone, see what happens. It has to be much more of a rifle shot, you know, a very accurate, we're sending this to a very small area, small thing. And if you explain to the candidate, this is part of your service offering, and he goes, I don't want that, then absolutely you should not be sending him out. If he, however, says, well, do you know what, I would really like to be proactively marketed to these group of companies, to this type of organizations, because I feel that these are relevant for me. And actually the really good candidates can help you prepare your target list. You know, very often they will be saying to you, I'd love to work for this company or this company or this company, or absolutely, you know, and they can work with you in a collaborative way and make sure that they're promoting themselves to who they want to be promoted to.
And perhaps especially high-level candidates, they wouldn't want to make the approach themselves. If they have a third party do so on their behalf that's representing their best interest, then that third party is able to say things about the candidate that they would perhaps be uncomfortable saying themselves. A third party can say, this guy is a star candidate, this woman has a fabulous background, you should entertain them. Whereas if a candidate says that themselves, if they make a speculative application to an organisation, then of course all of those things, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? So your credibility as a recruiter comes into bearing when you're saying, look, I wouldn't market simply anyone to you, but this person is worthy of your attention.
Absolutely. And if you're hitting these people, these businesses, these managers who you so say want to create a relationship with every day with another candidate who's a world-class, award-winning superstar, my best ever candidate, you don't deserve to have any credibility, in this guy's eyes. However, if you are going, when you genuinely get somebody that gets you excited, and you think this guy is genuinely interested in this role or could be interested in this role, then our job as recruiters is to bring it to the attention of everybody that's going on. I mean, I always say, one of the things we always ask our clients, or I hope we ask our clients, I certainly used to back when I was more hands-on in the job, was what is it that will make you sit up and take notice? What candidate, what skill set is it that your CEO will go mental at you if you don't make a case to take this person on? And in every business, there will be somebody. So here in my business, for example, if somebody says, Dan, we've got a recruiter who's got 5 years experience, he places 100 people every year, he's brilliant. Then if one of my directors or managers never flagged this up to me and said, I received this CV today, I'd probably shoot them. I'd be like, what are you doing? This is exactly what our business is based around. This is the skill set that we need here. So I think with that in mind, it's all about learning about what your client wants and then delivering against that. And look, you're not going to get 100% right, obviously. That's a dream world that I don't live in. But it's about giving yourself the best chance. And even if you miss, you're at least credible. You're.
You start to build that relationship. Can I ask you a question, Darren? And of your placements, so out of over 100 placements that you make as a business, what percentage of those would you hope would be from a speculative approach to the candidate client? Is it a low number?
No, I actually think it would be a relatively high number. So here at Opus, we're a fast growth business, so we're always taking on new clients all the time. We're in a position whereby, every year we're pretty much, increasing in size between 60 to 100% in terms of the number of placements we're making, which is great, but that means we're constantly having to win new businesses and win new clients. Even no matter how good our clients are, it's not a big enough pool to sustain that level of growth. And without question, one of the new business activities that gets us the best results is by proactively marketing good quality candidates to clients. I don't know the exact stat, and I wish I did. This is why you're better than me, Louise, because you ask better questions. But I think it's probably, I'm going to say 20% would be accountable. And then from that, there's a secondary element of how many relationships were formed on the back of you having a near miss with a positive candidate. It's like, oh, this is not relevant right now, but we're looking for a such and such. And again, that would probably account for maybe another 10 or 20%, or during the course of time, you could argue all of our clients, because, the level of service is what hopefully keeps them returning and coming back, not just the initial introduction.
So are
exactly? Sorry, Stephen. Just follow up that. Steve Wood has just said more or less what you said. You should every sales call effectively have a candidate involved. So rather than phoning up talking about your services, you're talking about the type of people you've got. So if you're placing a certain percentage from those calls, but all of your new business calls involve these are the type of people we've got, then potentially that is a model for client development.
Yeah. So I very, very early on in my recruitment career, I was I was on the phone, I was making a sales call to Logica. I still remember it now. And the internal recruiter at Logica turned around and said, I was basically asking for them to give me a chance and all the rest of it. And the guy said, Darren, I tend to find that it's much better to sell to people or to introduce yourself to people when you can offer a solution to somebody's problem, as opposed to giving them another problem by asking you to give a chance and whatever. And I learned so much just from that answer. And I think so Steve's question, look, whether every sales call should have a candidate involved, I don't know, because I think there's always other angles and other things. However, I think by way of demonstrating your ability to help solve a solution, when you are a recruiter, ultimately you're going to be sort of like judged on your ability to deliver against their problem, and their problem is staff. So you want to be able to flag up as real an example as possible. So if you can reference a candidate, or even if it's not an available candidate right now in the marketplace, it's like, oh, we have recently placed somebody, you know, with this skill set at a competitor firm or a local firm. It enables you to at least build that confidence in them that you are the right solution to their problem, I guess.
So would you say that in doing so, your recruiters are targeted on a certain proportion of their time being spent on find a great candidate, use that candidate to market to new clients and win new clients in that way, or indeed existing clients?
Yeah, so the nature of recruitment is that, you know, it's a job whereby you're judged on how good you can bring on new candidates and new clients. So you're making a number of outbound, proactive sales calls, you know, if that's what you want to call it. So there are KPIs and metrics around that, you know, in terms of adding new businesses, identifying new potential targets, learning about why is this business relevant to us, what market information do we have to justify why this is a client that fits in our target portfolio. Because I think this is the thing that's sometimes often lost as well. If you are just sending stuff out to any client that just because they're a potential client, you're probably missing the entire point of what you're trying to do. You need to justify why somebody enters your list as a target client and why they exist on your radar. And I think when you're able to justify that to yourself, you're able to justify it much easier to your client, who then appreciates you for your offering in that space and doesn't think you're just some, you know, some snotty-nosed recruiter just trying to make money off them. You're actually in this space and able to add value to them. So hopefully that's
how do you feel about using the practice of bypassing HR, going straight to a hiring manager, where you're going around HR, you've not strictly speaking got permission, but you're being a bit cheeky, and you're hoping that the hiring manager will be so excited he'll then take that to HR and say, I want to interview this guy. I know there's a PSL, but this agency's brought me a terrific candidate.
Yeah, I smile because you're a bad man for even asking this question. You know, I think again, this is like a real contentious issue. Look, I think every client, every business you're going to deal with is different, and HR in one organization does not mean HR in another organization. I think, you know, we as recruiters need to understand and respect the client's needs and the way that the client operates. So if I didn't follow it, every time I was told this needs to go through HR, in my history as a recruiter, I'm not necessarily talking about my role now because my role is obviously different, but then I would have made significantly less placements. You know, it's very often HR, you know, and it's not their fault, absolutely not their fault, but they're often used as a barrier. You know, they are instructed, they are told, these are our agencies, this is who we work with, and no matter what, you will not be able to work with anyone else. So they then in turn pass that on. So you then end up in a scenario whereby, with respect, you know, you have a potentially lower ranking junior HR assistant, you know, following out the orders of her manager and her HRD, who have briefed her on these are the rules. And this is very dangerous because you could phone and say, hello, I've got the world's greatest CV, which is going to revolutionize your business and make you billions of pounds. And she says, sorry, you're not on our PSL. And what that is, there's no CEO in this world that would go, what a great strategy that is. You know, when you get to CEO level, they're going, who is this guy? We want to see him. Who is this person going to revolutionize business and make us billions of pounds? Of course they do. And so I think that, you know, I think this is where businesses can sometimes become disconnected. You need to be, from a sales perspective, you know, let's focus on that. And from a service provider perspective, you need to be pitching to the person who's got the headache. Now, if in some businesses the HR team carry the headache of the staffing solution, then they will probably be much more proactive in making sure that they're engaged and solving their headache. In other businesses, HR team may not have the headache of the thing, and it might fall at the lap of a project manager.
It used to be pitched in sales training that you should only be pitching to the person with the money, the authority, and the need.
Yeah, we've all heard
hiring manager, but the hiring manager doesn't have the authority.
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard sort of like very, very things like this. You know, like you know, pitch the man, money, authority, need. Great. Yeah. You know, we've heard don't pitch the etc. You know, it's we've all heard these things, and fundamentally, I think they're all kind of right and kind of wrong. You know, there's no brush that fixes it. You know, some of my best relationships and my best clients have been through very, very positive HR relationships. And actually, if you're dealing with a well-structured, bigger organization, very often, if you want a true relationship with that business, you kind of have to and want to be, you know, interacting and you know, conducting it through HR. That said, there's plenty of other organizations. So let me give you one of our examples. So in the energy field. So, you know, we've got a very fast growing, very successful energy business called JDR Energy. They're doing a great job and they're winning business all over the world. So let's just pick, I don't know, one of our clients, let's say GE. So we work with General Electric. Yeah. Okay. General Electric have got some monster project on in Libya. Okay. Now the official process probably says we need to contact General Electric HR in wherever, and then by the time it's been kicked around for 17 years and we've tendered 550 times and I'm dead and all the rest of it, then we meet the criteria of being able to maybe send them a CV. That does not work for the guy sat in Libya who's got the headache of needing to staff up this project. You know, so if we are engaged with this business in the right way that benefits the business, we have to be having direct relationships with the line managers or the people with the headache. So there's always a case. And I think it's about, as a recruiter, as a good recruiter, you need to make the judgment call on when it is acceptable. I don't think it's ever acceptable to bypass anyone. That sounds like it's an underhand maneuver. Is it sometimes acceptable and in the interest of their business as well as our business to make a different approach and come at it from a different angle? Absolutely. And I think that the interest of everyone is to do that.
Can I bring up another thorny subject? If you pitch a candidate to a hiring manager, it's entirely possible they get excited about a candidate. They want to see a candidate at the very least, but terms have not been agreed. You've submitted, either you've told them everything about the individual, or you might have given them, headline details without revealing the name of the person. But you're essentially given information before you've agreed terms, and maybe they're not the people to agree terms with. How do you handle that?
And again, every business is different, and you know, it's a tough one, because you've got this scenario. Then you enter this situation whereby, you know, one party within the business may want to deal with you, and one party doesn't. You know, and I think as recruiters, we can only put across what we've professionally done, and make a case that we believe this warrants a legitimate relationship, that they should be looking at over and above this CV and thinking, this is the kind of people that we could benefit from. So it's never the time to start throwing your toys out of the pram and going, we sent the CV first, or we'll never work with you, or there, you know, or having some big argument. Why would you do that? I mean, it's a very negative way, and you can just get caught in this fly trap of the more you struggle, the more you die kind of thing, you know. So you just want to be in a situation whereby, you know, it is agreed. But again, it's understanding this in the correct way. So you speak to the line manager and you say, do you have the authority to do this? And if the line manager says, no, I don't, then you need to start picking up the pieces. And I think what is important here is if you have actively sent out and worked with a candidate to send them to a number of opportunities, and it transpires that your judgment call has not worked out in your interests as a recruiter, and you're not going to get a fee, that you do not get in the way of the candidate getting their job. I think what you should be doing is taking a very longer term pragmatic approach and saying, well, do you know what? I made the judgment call to include this client on this hit list of people that we wanted to potentially market him to. I've made the mistake. I have to be the person here who is affected negatively. I think if more recruiters did that, I think we'll find ourselves in a much nicer environment, and then we'd actually stop a lot of the unnecessary fighting.
I think that's a great line to take. It's a brave line to take, where you're saying, well, we'll step back from any claim on a fee, and if the candidate and the client are a good match, but the client for whatever reason doesn't want to deal with us as a recruiter, then allow the candidate to submit and step back from a claim on a fee.
And that was one of the comments. I'd shared this in a LinkedIn group. I put it on Facebook to start with, but in a LinkedIn group as well, where it was described as I just find the right wording. What did Steve Huxham? A desperate act. Specking out candidates is desperate, and it just isn't. It doesn't have to be. It can be something which forms a really strong relationship and which positions you as a recruiter with really strong ethics. So I think you're right, Dan. Now, I'm going to try and do it with 20 minutes in. I'm going to try and do a quick reset like Alan Whitford always does. I'm also going to attempt to share my screen. Am I sharing my screen? Let's have a look. Because, is that sharing?
Yes.
I wanted to show the Firefish logo because we are sponsored by Firefish. So thank you very much for that. And it was Firefish, who got us on to using the new Crowdcast tech, which I quite like. Stephen, do you want? There was another thing on the LinkedIn thread about how why headhunters can't do specking out CVs. Did you want to touch on that, or should we come back to that a bit later?
No, I'll absolutely touch on that. But people often, they'll use different terminology and think it means one or another thing. They might say, well, if you're a headhunter, you do this thing and you don't do that thing. Or if you're an agency, a high street recruiter, you do other things. A good recruiter shouldn't limit themselves to only one of those. A good recruiter is commercially aware and is looking for the commercial interest of their own business they're working in, the interest of their clients that they're hoping to get partnerships with, but they have an absolute solemn duty to the interests of the individuals that they represent, which are the candidates. A good recruiter speaks with as many candidates and as many employers and hiring managers as possible, so that at any one time they have a real high density of information on that marketplace, and an overview of a marketplace if they're working in a particular niche that the individual candidates and employers would find impossible to have, because they're, with all due respect, they're relatively blinkered. They're working in their job, they're doing what they do, but a recruiter has an overview of a marketplace, and they'll often see opportunities arising. They'll be aware that a candidate's about to, an individual is about to leave a company. The company doesn't know that, but you, as a good recruiter, will be aware that that need is about to come up. So with that knowledge in advance, you can position yourself to be on good terms with that employer when that vacancy comes around. Now, whether you use that in your canvassing out of new candidates or not, you should always be aware of how any information that you share affects any of the individuals involved, and that you're not sharing information that you're not supposed to. One of the things I was going to bring up earlier on was it's quite common, and always has been, I'm sure it's still now, even with modern technology, it's quite common to gain agreement from a candidate to canvass them out, not to X, Y, Z company, this company, that company, and so on, and agree on a specific list, but to say, I'll canvass you out to any number of clients. Do you give me carte blanche to do so? I do have your permission to act on your behalf. And that's a really dangerous thing to do. It's good to have a degree of flexibility, but it's entirely possible with modern technology that you submit them to a candidate, so to an employer that they've either applied to directly or has some ongoing relationship with them, or indeed that another recruitment company has already submitted this candidate to, with or without the permission. So it's really important that wherever you send the details of any candidate, whether it be in an email, in an in-mail, or in a conversation, that you have permission to do so. It's not difficult to organize, but it's almost impossible to extricate yourself from a situation where you've frankly crossed the line and done something slightly unethical that's going to land you in hot water. And frankly, if you're in the business of marketing candidates as not only a means of securing the placement, but as marketing yourself as an expert recruiter and your business as an expert in your field, then if you embarrass yourself in that way, then your credibility is blown with that client for a long time, and quite probably with the candidate. So, Dan, if I can come back to you on the area of canvassing candidates and having their permission to specifically list the employers that you're going to speak to about them. What sort of instruction would your recruiters have in that regard?
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right. Everything you've just said, I think, is completely fair and reasonable, and is what you would expect. And I think some of this doesn't come back to being a good recruiter. It just comes back to being a good human being and actually operating with some level of integrity, whether you're a recruiter or not.
That's quite a stretch.
I like that. So some recruiters are actually human. So I think so. I've met plenty that aren't. But I think so. For me, it's you work with your candidates to ensure that you are representing them in the way they want to be represented. Now, the unfortunate thing, we all know this, you'll get some less scrupulous recruiters that will go, oh, tell me where your CV's been sent. And their next phone call is, I've got a lead for this person, or a lead for this company, and I'm on the phone and I'm going to try and do this guy who's just giving this lead, do him out of a job. That is a weak kind of recruitment. You have to be relying on better market knowledge than just some poor guy who you've hoodwinked into giving you a lead for no apparent reason. If that's how you're feeding, you're a bottom feeding recruiter who will never truly make it in the game. The good guys positively map out their market. Yes, they get market information on who's looking, who's not looking, what's going on at that, but they never use it to the detriment of the person giving that information, because that is a short-term strategy. You can only survive in the game for so long with that strategy. And and people may say, no, you're wrong, it's all about sales and get leads and do this. Of course, the act of getting good quality leads is there, but you should never be doing it to the detriment of your candidates or your potential clients. Otherwise, it's only you. You're doing it to your own detriment because this gets found out. I think what people should be doing is, when you ask that question, where do you not want your CV to go and why, you need to be, they might say, I don't want it to go there because my ex-boss works there and I hate him, or I've got a third stage application there, or I've got this, I've got this. And you should use that in the confines of being a recruiter and actually having privileged information. And I think this is where recruitment really does need to sort itself out and grow up. I think you can't go to a doctor and say, I've got this problem, or this is my symptom. The doctor says, what's your symptoms? Tell me, I want to help you. As a recruiter does, what's going on? Tell me, I want to help you. And you go, and then the doctor goes immediately out of there and goes, oh, you'll never guess what, he's doing this, and then uses it to their own benefit. So until we get to this, we actually operate with some ethical values, and we operate in a field whereby we actually want to take accountability for our own behaviours, we deserve to be called leeches and and all of the things that we get called, because that's actually what a number of people are doing. So, for me, work with the candidate and with the client with their best interests at heart. People will see that long term, and it will actually enable you to develop a much stronger and better candidate and client base.
What I always found is that any opportunity that presents itself for you to display an ethical line that you won't cross, that's fantastic marketing. That's great marketing, because every candidate that you speak to at some point can or will be a client, and the ability to, when they're asking for information on something that you really shouldn't be sharing, and you say, well, frankly, I can't do that and I won't do that because you wouldn't like it done to you if you were the candidate, then the opportunity to display your ethics in practice is a great way of marketing yourself, because everyone wants to be dealt with at that level.
Yeah, completely agree. And actually, I've just seen on the side here, as these things come up, Lisa Scales has said, has asked a good question about
Carte blanche.
You should have carte blanche to market people out. And firstly, I think it's a great point. So Lisa's made the point of my consultants were always coached to not take the time on a candidate who wasn't using you exclusively. Mm-hmm. And of course, the more powerful relationships you can have with candidates, the better. And I go back to that. Ultimately, you would want to be working with candidates exclusively. Yeah. I think, though, that sometimes, certainly in the modern world, and it depends what market you're in, that's always impossible to actually truly get. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say Lisa's not in the modern world, but it's just.
I wouldn't say it to her face.
No. But this is why I should never come on these things. I say things terrible. Sorry, Lisa. But no, it depends what market you're in. I think the market is very important on this, and the pace of which things have to happen. Mm-hmm. So if you take the IT market, it can change very quickly. The demands on that. We've got good candidates on board in the morning and place them in the afternoon. Yeah. So very often they have a number of opportunities. So sometimes you do get candidates that are already engaged and in process with other things, and that doesn't stop them being a good candidate or stop you, being in a position to actively market them in their best interests. Mm-hmm. So I completely take her point. Super relationships with your candidates, and ideally work with them exclusively. And I get this real kind of agent, if for want of a better word, kind of role. Like the footballers, the pop stars, these people, they have long-term, often lifetime relationships with, or career-time relationships with their agents, where they're allowed to genuinely, work together and look beyond the next placement and think, right, this is somebody who I trust. This is somebody who's going to represent me longer term. And I think it's our job to try and offer that service.
On that exclusive nature, of course, recruiters are always trying to deal or try and pursue an exclusive relationship with a client, and of course with candidates. They want to do that. They want to win a client from the competition and then be dealing with them exclusively. And it's a bit like politicians. Politicians, their entire life are campaigning for people to change allegiance from one party to another. But politicians, more than anyone else, despise any other politician who switches from one party to another. So they're trying to get people to do the very thing that they don't like. So you need to, in the real world, as a recruiter, as anyone dealing with clients and employers, you need to be aware that, yes, you're asking them to give you a chance to work alongside someone who's your competitor, with a view to later down the line being exclusive with that employer. But you need to know that at the same time, your competitors are doing the exact same thing, trying to win your clients. So keeping a realistic and ethical stance on what you do is the best way of retaining your sanity, frankly.
Yeah, and I think there's another thing linked to that with regards to the exclusivity side. I mean, I've got a number of through my brands, I've got a number of relationships whereby we're the master vendor or we carry an RPO position. But exclusivity should never mean exclusivity, because ultimately, I mean this with our clients, that our clients should have the right to take on the best available candidate. I don't want to be the parasite that only means that our clients, we hooked them into signing some deal, and then for the next 3 years, they just have to take on crappy candidates. That's absolutely not the case. So I think exclusivity should only ever go so far as a starting point and an opportunity. It should never be, I've got you the 100th worst CV that you've seen today, but you've got to take him on because I've got a contract that says you do. That, again, that's non-business, that's anti-business. You actually want your client to thrive and succeed, and you want to be part of that. And part of seeing them thrive and succeed is actually sometimes you don't place their jobs. that's sometimes the way it is. I love Opus. I'm very proud of what we do here, and I think we've got some very good practices.
Yeah.
But we don't get every single good candidate in the world on our database, and it'd be ridiculous to suggest we do. So there's going to be some times when we deserve to lose out, and that's good too. It's like we just need to find a way of how did they get that good candidate? How do we get more good candidates? So look, I don't need to place every person in every job. I need to offer my clients a well-rounded, educated, thought-through service that allows them to get the win that they want, which is probably good candidates.
Yeah, perfect. How are we doing for time, Louise?
Well, I was going to ask, we're at 40 minutes now, so we ought to be wrapping up. Do you think we can do a very quick, when it works, why it works, what you should do in a couple of sentences? From both of you, if you want, Stephen. I know you've got strong opinions on this.
I'm sorry, I was distracted by looking at what Lisa had put in the bottom there.
This is the thing we're putting down here. So well, let's go to Darren first. Well, actually, Stephen, have you got any more tips? Sorry, I ought to let you finish, Darren. Have you got any more tips that you wanted to share, Stephen, before we move to Darren for his roundup of how to get it right?
My only tips is, are, as always, put yourself in the position of the client and the candidate, and remember that that those two can be interchangeable. When you want people to trust you, then demonstrate that you're trustworthy.
Yeah, good tip. Has anyone said don't use in-mails? That's my tip. Go on, Dan. What would be your tip for getting this right?
Operate with honesty and integrity. If you're genuinely excited about a candidate, tell the candidate you're genuinely excited about them. Tell them that you feel that you can help them. And if you genuinely feel you can help them by operating in a way where you're, speccing their CV out to clients, because you genuinely feel that's the best interest for them and for the clients on the receiving end of that, then do it. If you don't think that's the best thing, then just don't do it, because you lose your integrity, and this, you can lose it once, can't you? And then it's very, very difficult to get it back. So, so if it feels right, it probably is right.
Yeah.
No, perfect. Thanks, Dan. You great subject to have you on, but also loads of really good advice just for recruiters in general about how to operate, I think, with integrity and honesty. So thank you very much for joining us this week. We are back on the 11th of April talking about starting up a recruitment business, which is also a subject you know quite a lot about, Darren, and how to successfully do that, how to grow a business which you can either grow as a lifestyle business or a business to sell. And Stephen and I will be joined by Paul Dewick and another guest. Yep. Thank you ever so much for hosting this week while I fiddled on with the tech. And I'm now going to attempt to stop the broadcast. And we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Darren.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.